Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the virtual program, Successful Boards, Fundraising, Communication, and Management with Ron Huddleston. I'm Brittany Spillman, and I serve as the Cary Center Director of Community and Collegiate Programs. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank this year's sponsors. The virtual program presenting sponsor is the Walker Area Community Foundation. The Walker Area Community Foundation is a nonprofit grant-making organization building the permanent capital needed to daily facilitate community conversations, inspire action, and empower partners. This year's community and collegiate program sponsors have pledged to support our efforts in providing meaningful programming to the nonprofit sector. Thank you to Auburn University Outreach, the East Alabama Community Foundation, the River Region United Way, Auburn University Outreach Office of Public Service, Social U, the Drummond Thorne Stoops Fund for Excellence, and a community service grant made possible by State Senator Randy Price and State Representative Joe Lovern. Ron has over 40 years' experience in fundraising management as a consultant and as a senior executive for a number of not-for-profit organizations. Ron has executive leadership experience developing, implementing, and managing nonprofit institutions and philanthropic programs throughout the United States and Western Europe. He had a successful career in the not-for-profit sector, serving many prestigious organizations, including San Francisco's French Hospital Foundation, where he was president and CEO for more than 13 years. Ron is one of only 181 professionals worldwide to hold the designation of Fellow since its inception in 1967 by the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy. He is also a certified fundraising executive with the Association of Fundraising Professionals, a member of the Partnership for Philanthropic Planning, and in addition, he has lectured and published extensively on various business and fundraising topics. Please join me in welcoming Ron Huddleston as he shares about successful boards. If you have questions along the way today, please put them in the chat box, and I'm happy to facilitate that.
All right. Well, thank you, Brittany. It's a privilege to be here today and to talk with all you folks. As Brittany said, I've been in this business for a couple of days, and I'm going to give you a lot of information. A lot of this comes out of board source. A lot of this is my personal opinion, so feel free to ask any questions. Today's session is I hope is packed with insight and strategies that will help you strengthen your board as we move forward. There are three nonprofit stages. Nonprofit boards generally evolve through these stages here: the organizational board, the governing board, and the institutional board. If you're a board member or an executive director, your board obviously or probably falls in one of these. The mom and pop organization is pretty much, two or three people get together, they're going to change the world in some way. They formulate a nonprofit and they get going. And the governing board is a little bit larger. It could be your YMCA, your Boys and Girls Club in town, something along those lines, little bit more structured. Lot more fundraising going on in these boards, a lot more organized. And then you have your institutional boards, which are like your colleges and universities, your major medical centers, and so forth. And some boards go through all three of these stages. If you look at the history of the American Red Cross, founded by Clara Barton, you will see that she was a mom and pop shop back in the beginning. And if you fast forward a couple of 100 years plus, you'll see that they are by far an institutional board covering the entire United States and outside of that. By the way, if anybody has any questions, please put it in the chat box and we can go about answering your questions as we go through this. So I want you to, I have actually sit on boards that you're sitting there going, why am I here? They don't start on time. I don't know why they asked me to be on this board. I don't know what my expectations are. I like what they do, but I'm not sure. And now they're telling me they want me to fundraise, and I just don't know what's going on. Well, what if we could answer those questions for you in this presentation? I want you to leave this presentation knowing why you're on a board, how to recruit board members that are going to understand what your needs are, what your expectations are, um, and are going to represent you well in the community. Today's objective is we'll cover essential components of a healthy, high-functioning board. We'll discuss the roles and responsibility that support effective governance, explore common challenges boards and CEOs face, and introduce strategies for recruiting, training, and retaining impactful board members. By the end, I hope you'll have a clear understanding of the steps needed to build a strong and successful board. As many of you know, Peter Drucker was one of the great minds in management. And he says, his statement was that the responsibility of a great board is the CEO. The CEO sets the tone and supports the board in fulfilling its role. If your CEO is not on board on building a strong board, it's going to be difficult and you're going to probably waver. I can tell you that Scottsdale Healthcare here in Arizona retained us right after we started our business in 1991. Wanted us to come in and do a development audit for the new president and CEO of the foundation. It was rumored that Scottsdale Healthcare in those days was raising multi-millions of dollars and was one of the primary nonprofits in the community. When we did our audit, we found out that they were only raising about $1 million a year. 500,000 of that was coming from the gift shop and the auxiliary. And their board was very dysfunctional. They would hardly even show up at board meetings. We laid out our findings. We gave them some recommendations. In the end of the 1990s, they brought us back again. We did our updated audit. They made some remarkable improvements. They're now raising about $6 million a year, and they have some pretty good board members. Well, we fast forward to 2016. They brought us in again, and I have to tell you, this CEO is now retired, but this CEO stayed with this organization and made it his commitment to make this organization, their board, the best board in Maricopa County, if not all of Arizona. The grandson of Thomas Watson of IBM runs the board. To sit on the board, your minimum donation is $250,000. The new president is changing that to $1 million. And the CEO, when I met with the new CEO, he says, it's my goal to take this even to the next level, which is when anybody comes to town and says, I want to get involved, where do I go to meet the right people and get involved? They say, Honor Health Care Foundation Board. And oh, by the way, there's a waiting list to get on that board. I think that any organization out there, now it took them 30 plus years, but keeping that mindset now put it to where they were raising, when we started, they were raising $1 million a year. Last year, Scottsdale Healthcare, now Honor Healthcare, raised $62 million in charitable giving. and they have the strongest board, as I said, probably in the whole state. So it can be done, but you have to make a concerted effort to move. As many of you know, boards can vary significantly in the effectiveness from supportive and strategic to inconsistent and even obstructive. I have literally seen boards that have yelled at, where at board meetings, there are board members yelling at people and screaming at people uh, over silly little things. I've also seen boards, Samaritan Health, back in the 80s, it's now Banner out here. Uh, their board meetings were the most organized I have ever seen. They were an hour and 15 minutes. People would come in 20 minutes early, have lunch. The board meeting would start at 1 o'clock, and by 2:15 it was over with. All the committees had their reports, so that it was just approving the minutes from the committees, and it started on time, it ran on time. And then I went and visited another organization in San Francisco when I was there. And the meeting started at 6 o'clock for dinner. And then after dinner, which was about 7:30, the board meeting started. And then at 2 a.m., I went home that night. There was very little organization. It was one of the strangest environments I've ever seen. And it took 2 years of us working with that board, but we got them where they could at least get through a board meeting in 2 hours instead of 6 hours. So where does your board? Is your board unhealthy or healthy? And what do you think we can do to put it more on the healthy end? Now let's talk about formal roles every board member should understand. Board members are responsible for ensuring that the organization complies with all laws and regulations. They are, in fact, fiscally responsible for the organization. A lot of board members do not understand that when they go into a nonprofit board, if they get sued, they can be personally held liable for any damages that organization insures. That's why it's important for your board members to understand their roles and make sure that they understand their commitment to the organization. One of the board's most critical roles is overseeing the executive director or CEO, providing, giving them support and accountability. With a strong grasp of these core responsibilities, boards are better positioned to lead and avoid issues like micromanagement. One thing that board members need to understand, and most do, but many don't, is that they only manage the CEO and executive or executive director. They don't manage public relations. They don't manage personnel, and everything that they do should go through the executive director. Again, you can't have a board of 15 or 20 people telling people within the organization what to do and how to do it. That's the CEO's job, and the board's totally responsible for the overseeing of the executive leadership. Other board roles: governance, fundraising, policy development, and obviously acting in the best interest. Governance involves high-level oversight, while fundraising requires active involvement in donor engagement. Policy development is about ensuring that the organization's actions reflect its values. Together, these areas help to create a balanced board with support the organization's mission. when you look at that, fundraising is the one thing that in all my years, I have to tell you, I have never gone into a board and said, do you guys like fundraising? And everybody raises their hand and says, yes, that's my most favorite thing to do on this board. So if you're sitting there going, oh my God, fundraising is really a responsibility. Yes, it is. Um, and if that wasn't told to you before your involvement in this organization, um, that's the first place to start. That's the number one criticism when I meet with development directors and CEOs outside of their board. Their biggest concern is getting their board members to actively participate in fundraising, opening up their networks, and representing them positively in the community. And that's one of your primary roles as a board member. So we talked about governance. Those are all the responsibilities over there. Boards have two primary objectives, governance and support. Governance is about representing the community's interests within the organization, setting its direction, and ensuring financial and legal accountability. That is also why, as I mentioned before, the board members are fiscally responsible. If your board does not have what's called D&O insurance, make sure it does. That's directors and officers insurance, and that's why it's offered, so that if indeed something happens and you come under legal, the D&O insurance can help offset those expenses. Because if you get fined or a judgment is against you and you don't have D&O insurance, that falls to the individual board members. So be aware of that. Under the support is acting as ambassadors for the organization, reaching out to the community and assisting in fundraising efforts. The dual role requires that board members understand when to act as a body and when to contribute individually to the organization's success. A healthy board is built on three pillars: recruit, train, and retain. Recruitment is about identifying and bringing individuals who align with the organization's mission. Training ensures that every member is well prepared and contributes effectively, and retention focuses on keeping members engaged, involved, and motivated to stay committed to the mission of the organization. Let's talk about board recruitment. This is the most important role that a board has, is recruiting additional members and their replacement. And this is where most boards fall down. They do not have a process. I was literally a number of years ago, I was on the golf course with the president of our organization. I will not name his name so he can remain silent and innocent. And on that golf course, they paired us with two other individuals. And by the turn, that means when we were finished the ninth and we're going on to the 10th and we had our beer and our hot dog, he told me that he was going to ask one of the people we were playing with to join his board because he liked him and thought he would be a great board member. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of boards find their board members. Is they're a friend of Bobby or a friend of James, and they know they'll be good, and by God, we're going to vote on them next week. And what I'm telling you is that's the quickest way to run in trouble as a board of directors. It's essential to engage potential members in a way that help them understand the commitment required. With the right recruitment process, we can create a board that brings diverse skills and perspectives to the table. Looking at the board recruitment process, and I have some handouts that Brittany will get out to everybody. And I may, if I can figure out the program here, I may even go through some of them myself. But there are some handouts that will help you identify, determine the characteristics of your ideal candidate. Uh, I have an application process in there, complete recruitment program. The recruitment process goes beyond just filling a seat, as I mentioned before. It's about identifying individuals who bring the right skills, perspectives, and values that align with your organization's mission and strategic goals. You should know why somebody is coming on your board. And once we have a clear picture of the board's needs, the next step is to create a prospect list. If you have a strategic plan and you know that you're going to be building a major addition to your organization in the next few years, there are certain people you're going to need to have on the board that will help you get through that. So being able to have a strategic plan or knowing where you're going and how you're going to get there will help you best identify those board members that you need. This isn't just about finding people with impressive resumes. It's about finding individuals who are generally passionate about your mission and really want to get involved, roll up their sleeves, and participate. Engagement is crucial during recruitment. Inviting candidates, before you bring somebody on your board, invite them to a special event, invite them to a board meeting, get to know these people. Board training is essential. Regular training is crucial for maintaining a knowledgeable and skilled board. Training sessions should focus on developing competencies needed for the board's current and future goals. This could include skills in financial oversight, fundraising, or strategic planning. Not everybody who comes on your board is an expert in all fields, but they're going to have to make decisions on all those fields, from finance to governance to fundraising, to decisions regarding moving forward with building campaigns, strategic plans, etc. And you should do ongoing training that will help those board members understand their mission and their goals. This is a little hard to see, but set clear expectations for your board. Every board member should understand why they are on that board or why they are being asked. They need to understand the organization's values, and they need to commit to those values and support them in their actions. Attendance is and active participation in meetings is crucial. I've seen boards where only half the board members show up at board meetings. So I've literally been on boards where we couldn't do any business because we didn't have a quorum. So getting board members to understand what their mission and what their expectations are is critical when you're talking about bringing on additional board members. By clarifying these expectations from the beginning, you ensure that everyone understands their responsibilities and can contribute meaningfully. Brittany, are there any questions so far?
No, not at the moment.
All
Oh,
right.
excuse me, I take that back. In my experience, it is hard to recruit people to a board when when we are a mom and pop version of an organization, as noted in the previous slide. Do you have any specific guidance on how to recruit to a small board of directors when most of the people who are actively wanting to serve are family and friends, not necessarily community and diverse community members?
I can give you some specific things that we have done for some of our clients that face that, as well as looking at broadening their visibility in the community. As I work, we do what we call leadership briefings, where we'll do we'll work with the CEO to put like a 30-40 minute presentation together about the organization. And then we will work with an existing board member who has a nice home in the area, and we'll do a briefing at this person's home, and we'll invite our potential board members to come in a non-threatening way to learn about the organization. The CEO makes a 20-30 minute presentation about the organization, where they're going, what their needs are, talks about the good things about the organization and any challenges they're finding or having, and as well as what the expectations are of board members. It's done in a very non-threatening way. There's usually food and libations there. They ask plenty of questions, and this is just kind of the starting point of getting people initially involved in your organization. Then it's up to you to either assign a board member to that prospect, or you, the CEO or the development director, to build relationships. Relationship building is the key to anything in nonprofit management, whether it's fundraising or your board or putting your board together. It's all about relationship building. So we use pardon me, I've had a cold, and so I'm kind of getting over that. So we use the leadership briefing as a strategy to introduce people to the organization. After that, invite them to a board meeting, invite them to your special event. Get them to know you before you ask them to sit on your board. I hope that answers your question or gives you some ideas.
We have another one. Red Mountain Makers is Birmingham's nonprofit makerspace. We elect our board from our membership each year. We've grown from under 30,000 revenue in 2019 to potentially breaking 200,000 this year. Should we let's try all that again. Should we consider changing our board structure as we grow?
I think you need to do a strategic plan, and where are you going to be in 5 years, and where do you want to be in 5 years, and what resources do you need to get there, and is that membership going to be the group that gets you there? In the handouts that you'll get, we did a complete package for the Arizona Elk Society, which was the breakoff from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And they did the same thing. Every year they elected their members. They had an annual meeting, and they said, we're looking for board of the directors, and people would raise their hand, and that's how they picked their board. They went from $100,000 budget to now to a couple of million, and they find that their board just wasn't very sophisticated. They had people that they had no idea who these people were, other than they paid their $50 a year to belong. And so they broke away. They changed their bylaws, and now they go through a well-defined process to find board members that will actually help them achieve their strategic plan. And they've become very good about updating their strategic plan every 3, 4, 5 years, and then identify board members that can help to take them there. It's one of the most difficult things you can do. Moving from the mom and pop organization to that middle organization is one of the most difficult, because you run into something that we call the founder syndrome in the industry, which is Um, the people who founded it don't want to change. They like it the way it is. And change is something, if an organization is going to move to the next levels, then get used to change. Because if you can't change, you're not gonna grow, and somewhere along the line, you'll probably start to decline a little bit. So I hope that answered your question. So one of the things we talk about welcoming a new board member on is having a board binder. I don't know how many of you have a board binder, but this could be a 3-ring notebook. It could be online. Um, I'll tell you up front that when I see organizations that have a website and they have a sign on for the board, this is your special place where you can sign on and you can review your board binder. I have actually asked board members what their sign on information is, and they couldn't tell me. Um, Getting board members, especially people who are running their business or work for, are very busy in their own careers, to stop, go to a website, sign in, find things. I find it much more, and I know this could be just the fact I'm old school, but when you have it in the 3-ring binder, they can pick it up, they can look at it, and it's very easy for them. And you want to make things as easy as possible for your board. What you have in front of here are just some basics that should be in every board binder so that they can understand um, a little bit more about the organization. The other thing I also recommend, when you bring on a new board member into your organization, give them a mentor. Identify, have them work with another board member where they can ask questions, they can go to lunch, they can talk about the organization, they can ask questions. A lot of new people on boards at the board meetings, I've seen that new people don't ask many questions. Uh, they don't challenge anybody, and you need to be challenged on boards. And by having the mentor relationship, people are a lot more engaged, much more earlier in their experience than before. Um, Having these resources at hand enables new board members to quickly come up to speed, while existing members can reference as needed to stay aligned and informed.
Ron, do you recommend, is there an affordable option out there for digital board books?
If you go back and look at that, um, let's see. Whoops.
Because first thing comes to mind for me is like a Google Docs or somewhere that you can put all of this information that they can do or in look.
Right. And there's probably something like Google Docs or whatnot. It's just make whatever you do, just make it easy for the person to be able to access that information. A lot of, if you're going to make sure that you can read it on the phone, because most people are going to, if they have a question, they're going to go to their phone. They're not going to sit down at their laptop or their computer to go through it. Um, the information there's, I think this right here covers a lot of the information, but again, this is your information. This is all about your organization. And you can add to this and whatnot. But if you're going to have it and you don't want to do it in the old style 3-ring notebook, just make sure that wherever it's can be accessed. It can be accessed by a computer. It can be accessed by your phone, by a tablet, and it's easy to get in and get out.
Thank you.
Board maintenance. One of the things that a lot of boards do not do, or a lot of organizations, is thank their boards. It's maintaining a healthy board requires ongoing effort, and it's got to be intentional. Annual satisfaction assessments are a great way to gauge members' experience, addresses concerns, and celebrates success. Appreciation events, even small tokens of gratitude, go a long way in reinforcing members' value to the organization. We, pardon me, we had a client in Texas, and it was a statewide organization. So they had an annual meeting once a year, and people would come in from all over the state. And there was one member, he's definitely a cowboy, a rancher from West Texas. He said his favorite part about coming into this board, the annual meeting, was that they had homemade ice cream. And it was homemade strawberry ice cream. And he waited every year for the annual meeting so he can come in. And that little appreciation, that little token went a long way to make him a very valuable member of that board. So matching each board member's interest and skills with appropriate roles and projects strengthen engagement and retention. By creating a supportive and rewarding environment, we ensure board members feel connected and motivated. And think about this, most of your board, if not all, are working or, or engaged in careers. Those that have retired have other interests now. And if they're not engaged in your organization and feel motivated in your organization, they're going to move on to other things. So it's your goal is to make sure that you treat these individuals, you value their time, and you treat them appropriately. Some of the beyond their former governance roles, board members are valuable ambassadors and supporters. They can introduce new people to the organization, host events, or give presentations to raise awareness. Board members with specific expertise can assist with public relations, draft statements, or help with donor recognition. These contributions extend the organization's reach and reinforce its presence in the community, making board members essential to the organization's visibility and influence. Extremely important for your board members to understand that they represent your mission, your goals, your objectives in the community. They are a network for you. Be sure your board members understand that. One of the things that burn out most board members are, unfortunately, the meetings. It's important to make sure that you're very well organized in your meeting. Board meetings are the most effective when they're focused, timely, and well prepared. Starting and ending on time shows respect for everyone's schedule, while structured agendas keep discussion on track. As I mentioned before, in the two examples, Samaritan Health, it was an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes, and God help you if it went a minute past that. And then another board meeting, my first time at the board meeting, it was a 6-hour engagement. And I felt burnt out about 3 hours into it. So keeping your boards on time and starting on time and ending on time will be a key event. Another thing is sending the agenda and materials in advance allows members to come prepared as you guide discussions, gently steer conversations back to the agenda. It helps maintain momentum. The Arizona Elk Society that I mentioned before had a real problem in the beginning. The board members got their, if they were lucky, they got their agenda and materials the night before the board meeting, and in some cases, often, they got it the day of. That's the quickest way to burn out board members very quickly and not be able to have very effective board meetings. Facilitation is the key, keeping discussions productive and ensuring everyone's voice is heard without going on course. I want the board members in this discussion to understand how nonprofits make money. We talked earlier about the fiscal responsibility of board members. Nonprofits make money three, possibly four ways. They have a fee for service or product. They borrow, which is not recommended. And if you don't believe me, look at your local hospital and look at their debt they have. And they get it from public and private contributions. And if they're lucky and they have endowment or some retained income, they can get some investment income. And the reason I show you this is the public and private contributions is the key mechanism for nonprofits to make money. Some nonprofits have no fee for service or product. They may have a membership fee, or I mean, like the Arizona Elk Society, they charge $50 a year to be a member, but they sell no services, they sell no products. They're out building elk habitat here in northern Arizona. So fundraising is the key way that they make money. I mentioned Honor Health. Here's a healthcare system, a billion-dollar healthcare system. They raised $62 million last year in charitable gifts at the cost of less than 10 cents on the dollar. For the hospital to make a profit out of their $1 billion, I think they made less than $100 million. Where do you think the best return on the dollar is? It's the private contributions. And they can do things now that they couldn't do because of the private contributions. And if you don't believe me, ask Mayo, ask some of the other major healthcare facilities, MD Anderson, Scripps. If you look at the universities, the chancellor or president is usually his or her main job is fundraising. So if you're a board member in a nonprofit organization, fundraising is one of your key responsibilities. As board member, it's crucial to focus on each of these areas, particularly contributions, as they are the foundational to most nonprofits. This comes with the responsibility to sustain the organization's mission through diligent oversight and active participation in fundraising. And what I mean by oversight is if you're out raising money for particular issues, make sure that money is spent in where you're saying it's going to be spent. The trustees' role in fundraising as board members, it's not just appropriate to ask for donations, it's essential. Trustees hold the organization in trust for the community and are responsible for advocating for the resources needed to fulfill its mission. Board members need to embrace the role of fundraiser as an opportunity to make a lasting impact. And I'm sure there's probably some questions. Any additional questions, Brittany?
Not at the moment.
Okay. This is usually the part where a lot of board members like to go hide, is oh my God, you want me to ask people for money. That's one of the primary roles uh, in the board. Now, does everybody on your board have to ask for money? No, but everybody on your board should be involved in raising money, whether it's hosting events and having somebody else do the asking, going on calls, uh, cultivating donors, opening up your networks. Just remember, the reason this is a nonprofit organization is because people can make charitable gifts to it, and that's how many nonprofit organizations maintain themselves. Usually selling their service or product doesn't pay all the bills.
Ron, what is your stance on board members donating to the nonprofit? Should all of them donate? How how do you feel?
We That's a great question, and it may be in here. I'm sure it is. My thought on that is if we're doing a capital campaign, for instance, it's in our contract that we expect 100% of the board to give to the campaign, commensurate with their ability. So not, a lot of organizations have board give and gets, or give and or gets. I look at that as, and some set it at $2,500, some set it at 5,000, some set it even higher. My feeling is if your organization is out asking for money, then you better have 100% of your board committed. Because I have literally been in the room where I'm asking somebody for a donation to an organization, and they'll literally say, "What did Pete Rose give to this organization?" Because I know he sits on the board, and I want to make sure he's given. Um, and again, if you look at, and we say commensurate with your ability, because I don't believe in $2,500 board gives and gets or 5,000. And I can go back and tell you another story. I was interviewing a retired woman in Bozeman, Montana, for a client, and um, she had written a check. I thanked her for her check for $5,000 to the organization, and I asked her, why did you give $5,000? What motivated you to get $5,000? And she said, well, they asked me for $5,000. And I knew who this lady was because she was involved in a capital campaign for another organization that we worked with years before. She gives $500,000 annually to this other organization because they did their research. They knew who this lady was, and that wasn't an exorbitant amount of money, and she did it. And if this organization that their major gift, they had identified that their major gift with $5,000, so that's what they asked her for, and that's what they got. Well, that whole principle is true for board members. I think that if you can make an annual gift, if your annual gift is 5,000, make it 5,000. If you can make an annual gift of 25,000, make 25,000. Our feeling, the way that I look at boards, is that if you're sitting on a board, this should be one of your top 3 or 4 or 5 charities. And so the majority of your annual gifts should be going to that organization. If you don't feel that way, then let somebody else sit on the board who does. Community impact, personal satisfaction, and a sense of giving back are all powerful motivators. This is the reason why people give. And the number tax deduction is usually at the end of the list. Most people give because somebody they know and trust asks them. And that's where it's important for your board members to understand. We don't view asking for money as begging, which a lot of people feel that that's what they're doing. And the other thing we get is if I ask Joe for a gift, then Joe's going to come ask me for a gift. And we've heard just about every excuse we can hear. Our feeling is if you have a good case of support and you fully understand the organization, its mission, and what it's accomplishing in your community, then you're asking for someone to invest in this organization through their charitable gift. And we see it more as investing than out there asking for money. Fundraising board, a lot of this we've covered. The board has a strategic role in fundraising, setting the direction and goals that guide the staff and campaigns. Board members help identify potential donors, contribute to strategic planning, and work along the CEO to secure the necessary resources. Their involvement doesn't just boost fundraising, it shows potential donors that the board is fully invested. This confidence in the organization and commitment to its future is a powerful motivator for supporters. People want to see that the board is involved and invested in this. And again, I've had many of the people ask, what does the board give? In fact, there's a foundation here in Arizona. Um, the gentleman that founded GoDaddy sold it for a couple of $1 billion and set up the Parsons Foundation. And if you look up the Parsons Foundation online, I believe they have a questionnaire for you to fill out. And if they've taken that off, drop me an email at ron@thehuddlestongroup.com and I'll send you a copy of it. But it's like a 3 or 4 page questionnaire that that the organization has to fill out. And one of the first questions is, what percentage of your board gives to you annually? Okay. And the next question is, and how much does your board give total? And if you answer that question, that 95% of my board gives annually, that application goes in the trash can. They don't take it on any further. So for the Parsons Foundation to get a major gift from Bob Parsons, your board better be totally invested and meaningfully invested. So look up that application, and there are many organizations other than the Parsons Foundation that follows that same procedure. So and that will wake you up with what you have to do. I mean, do you have audited financials? Do your board members attend more than 50% of the meetings? Do they give annually? All those are what funders are looking at before they make a commitment to your organization. So again, board responsibilities in fundraising is to actively support fundraising efforts, to start with personal financial commitment, which demonstrates their belief in the mission. Board members are also expected to show leadership by contributing time and ideas to fundraising initiatives. By setting goals, board members help establish clear fundraising strategy that staff can then work to implement. It's a primary role of being a board member in a nonprofit organization. Board involvement in fundraising significantly strengthens the organization's overall development efforts. They're a key member to the fundraising program of any organization, whether you're a mom and pop shop with the executive director who's also running the organization and is the chief fundraiser, to a university with an advancement office. The boards need to be involved in all aspects of that. So here's just a summary: personal financial commitment, set fundraising goals and strategies, and most importantly, lead by example. The community is going to know whether or not your board is invested in your organization. Giving and asking, one of the fundamental truths in fundraising is that people give money to people, not to programs. I totally support that. The human connection is what makes a difference as board members. Their relationship with potential donors are incredibly valuable. People are more inclined to give when they feel they're supporting a cause led by passionate and committed individuals. When board members reach out, make it clear that their support will lead to meaningful change, it's far more compelling than focusing on financial needs alone. In other words, you're making an investment that's going to change people's lives or change whatever you're looking at in your particular organization. Evaluation and accountability. This is something that's fun. Your board should sit down and do self-evaluations. Review 5 key methods for evaluating both the board and the CEO, which can help maintain high standards and support and organizational effectiveness. Self-evaluation. And there's a form in the handouts for this that you can look at, and feel free to adapt any of the material that are in the handouts to your own particular needs. Self-evaluation is actually a board member sitting down and evaluating themselves on their own contributions, strengths, and areas of improvement. Peer evaluations, which I find interesting. There's a couple of organizations we've run across that board members actually evaluate each other on whether or not their members, their peers are performing, meeting expectations as laid out. Annual board self-assessment is where the board looks at it in its whole. Obviously, the board evaluates the CEO. It's also good sometimes to go out, have a couple of board members go out, go talk to the president of the Chamber of Commerce, or the Better Business Bureau, or a major donor, and ask them, what do you think of us? Are we doing our job? Are we visible in the community? How can we better impact the community with our presence here? So evaluation and accountability is extremely important in your role as a board member. And if you're building a culture of philanthropy, and that should be the goal of your organization, is you have fundraising isn't a demon, it isn't something that, God, I have to go out and do fundraising. You should celebrate the fact. You should celebrate the fact that you're investing and others are investing in an organization in your mind is really making a difference to your particular community. You need to take the actions that you can to make sure that these values are within your board, set goals and accountabilities for philanthropy. And just remember, people give to people, and you're right up there in front of this organization. Everybody's going to look at you first. So have fun and enjoy being on the board. And I hope I answered some of your questions and thoughts, and didn't go too long.
Does anyone have any other questions for Ron? You're welcome to unmute or type them in the chat box, whatever works best for you.
Just remember, as I mentioned about Scottsdale Healthcare, now Honor Health, building a strong board takes time, dedication, and commitment from both the board members and the organization's leadership. And it takes everybody working together with I prefer a written strategy on how you're going to go there. Your Your goal should be, as I mentioned before, when somebody comes to town and wants to get involved in an organization to meet all the right people, it should be your organization. And you should be doing everything you can to build your organization to be that critical in your community.
Ron, thank you so much for a wonderful program. Everyone, you'll be getting an email from me with a link to today's presentation and recording, a short 3-question survey, and an opportunity to sign up to be a Cary Center nonprofit affiliate. The Cary Center nonprofit affiliate program currently serves over 375 nonprofits in Alabama and beyond and offers educational programming, professional development, and networking opportunities to nonprofit professionals. The Cary Center nonprofit affiliates are the first to learn about upcoming programming, and membership is free. We are excited to announce that we are now offering the Cary Center Nonprofit Professional Certificate. This is an online non-degreed certificate and offered through a partnership with the Auburn University Office of Professional and Continuing Education and Merit Nonprofit Professional Development, and provides a tailored curriculum for nonprofit professionals. Merit is an anytime, anywhere microlearning platform that builds 6 core nonprofit proficiency areas, including leading, learning, resource generating, planning, managing, and overseeing through 28 different learning paths. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at one of our monthly virtual programs or in person for our nonprofit training currently traveling the state.
Well, thank you for your time and dedication to making your boards as impactful as possible. And thank you again, Brittany, for inviting me. Appreciate it. It's fun. If anybody has any questions, want to ask me personally, again, my email is ron@thehuddlestongroup.com.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Take care.